The Struggling Artist Record Club is a vinyl record subscription service where I hunt and curate the best punk and punk-adjacent music out there and mail their record to your door each and every month. Imagine finding your new favorite band from across the country without ever having to leave the house. It doesn't get much better than that. The excitement of discovering new music just got that much easier. As a member of the Struggling Artist Record Club, you are going to receive some of the best music you've ever heard from bands you may never even heard of. Whether you've been collecting records for years or just starting out, the Struggling Artist Record Club is designed specifically for you. And right now, all new members get a Struggling Artist Record Club exclusive along with the monthly selection. So head to StrugglingArtistRecordClub.com, pick a membership, and start building that collection today. Thanks for coming on. We talked over threads, right? And like social media is such a weird thing for me. And, but like, I had mentioned, I think I had said something to Joe Hill, right? And then you replied and I was like, I don't know if this guy's coming at me for badgering him or what. And,
it was about how you say, Haverhill, right?
Haverhill. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
It's such, so his book that I was listening to is so good, but every single, and when I first heard the sample, I heard the narrator say Haverhill, and I was like, no, I can't do this. And then like 2 years went by and I'm like, I'm going to do it. Like it can't be that prominent, but it was like, it's like one of the major settings of that book.
I don't understand how, like, he's clearly from New England. He knew when he wrote the book how to say the word. So at some point he listened to it to sign off on the audiobook, right? And he wasn't like, wait a minute, go back and fix that. Because that would drive me nuts if I knew. That's like, for me, if I'm reading a book or listening to a book or whatever, and there's a name of a main character that's not like a strange name, and especially if I'm reading it, if I have to slow down reading to sound out the name that an author gave a character, I'm like, I don't want to fucking read that. Like, put it away. I'm done, you know? And it just takes you out of it. So so we
no, go ahead. I'm sorry. Yeah.
I was just gonna say we started connecting our threads, which I love threads. I think I would like it better if it wasn't owned by Meta, but you know, that's how it gets out there.
Yeah. And so it's going back to that other book, like the narrator said, Winnipesaukee just fine.
Which is a harder thing to say, right?
You would think they probably saw that and was like, let me see what it sounds like before. But yeah, the Haverhill. But I'm not, like, when I moved to Massachusetts, I had it wrong. You know, and there was a lot of towns I had wrong.
It's a lot.
And I'm from Rhode Island, right? So like,
Chester.
I knew Worcester. Yeah. Worcester was the only one I knew. Like in Gloucester, but like, so there's a video of NASCAR drivers trying to pronounce Massachusetts town names, and only one guy got Tewksbury right because he's like, well, I got all the other ones wrong, so I'm going to go, is it this? And it was right.
Yeah. I actually grew up in Tewksbury, and
I figured from Dudley Road.
Nobody, it's always Tewksbury. And it's like, no, that's not, it's close, but it's not right.
All right. So let's get this out of the way. What's your favorite beef shop?
I mean, pick your favorite child.
Yeah.
You know, that's tough. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know. Gun to my head, I don't think I could pick. It depends on where you are in the state. It depends on what mood you're in.
Yeah. I've never been in a, like, when I was traveling still for work, and I would do a lot of work up on the North Shore. Like, I'd hit like that North Shore Beefs guy up and be like, where am I going if I want one of these right now and I'm here? And he'd be like, you got to go like 2 towns over. I'm like, nope, not doing it.
Right. What's within 5 seconds of where I am? I'm hungry. Right. Yeah. I want it now.
Yeah. So it's always been It's always been a crack. I don't know. It's a roast beef sandwich with barbecue sauce. It's messy and it's good, and that, but I haven't had one that was like, oh my God, you know what I mean? So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
yeah. But if Andy Ferg's listening to this, he's gonna be mad. But I don't think he listens. So yeah. So all right. So that's how we connected, and we had to get that out of. I had to get that out of the way because I was like, when I was having you, when we started talking, I'm like, oh man, you should come on the podcast, and I was like, now I got to like bring up this weird, awkward moment where I was like, I don't know what's going on here, but but it was all good. And yeah, you were like, no, I'm really interested in how they said it. So,
yeah, that's what I wanted to know. I wasn't trying to come at you. And when I went back and reread my first response, I was like, all right, I came off a little bit as a dick. Like I didn't mean it that way.
I didn't think you did, but I didn't know. So
Yeah.
it was one of those things where like I think he is being sincere, but it's the internet, right?
You never. Text is, there's no context in text,
Yeah.
especially where you can only say 300 characters at a time or whatever. It's hard to be like, I want to know asterisk, and I'm being really nice about it. I'm not trying to come at you. It's hard.
Yeah. So, but then I saw you wrote a book, Dudley Road, and I was like, oh, it's on Audible. Let me check it out, and it blew me away. You have a great voice for narration.
Awesome, thank you.
I hope more gets out there. I'm sure it's a lot of work, and I don't quite know how Audible works with the independent publisher world, but
it's pretty easy, honestly. There was a company called Findaway Voices that does audiobook distribution. They were part of Spotify or something. They just split off into this other company, or they got sold or whatever. But it's pretty simple. You create an audiobook, you upload it, and anywhere that sells audiobooks, they just distribute it for you. So it's pretty easy. Audible does have some exclusivity that they want because, it's owned by Amazon and they're kind of jerks about everything. So you can, if you go direct through Audible and you opt into the exclusivity, they pay you more. It's still nothing, but you get a little bit more. So it's easy to do. The actual work to go into it is, the book is 7.5 hours finished. It probably took me 60 to do it.
Yeah.
There's just something about, I had this great little setup. So I'm a drummer. I have a drum room in the basement. It's soundproof-ish, as much as you can soundproof an old basement. But I made this little vocal booth. I hung some moving blankets. I had the iPad set up, and I had the whole thing, right? And I'm ready to go. And as soon as I started reading the first words of the first chapter, I became an idiot. I'm like, I don't know. I wrote these words in this order. Why can't I say them out loud correctly?
Yeah.
And I did that first paragraph I read so many times over and over again that now it's like, it's locked in my brain. It's memorized at this point. And then you just keep going. And I think at one point while I was recording, I would kind of, my daughter would go to bed. My wife would watch TV. I'd go downstairs at like 8 o'clock at night for like an hour over many, many weeks. And at one point, I think I was getting over COVID. So every third or fourth word I would cough, and I'd be like, shit, back up, delete, cut a new take, over and over and over again. And it was so much work, but it was fun. Like I enjoyed doing it. I liked at the end being able to have people listen to it and then come back to me and be like, oh, I really like this, or I really like that, or I had fun listening, or whatever. It's fun. It's a good experience.
Yeah. And like, I think there's something to hearing someone's story in their own words, right? Like in their own voice too. Like, you know what I mean? And yeah. So I've done a few, like with the podcast, like I've cut like, audio promos for bands and for like shows or new albums or whatever. And like, I always try to have fun with it, but it takes time. And like, when I used to go and do like to a spoken word or something like that, I would watch, because I'd go and I'd watch, and then I'd see like the headliners, you know what I mean? Like the main person, the main artist who's there, and they're reading from paper, and it doesn't matter who you are or how good you are. When you get into like, when the emotion starts to come out, you start to miss what you're reading, right? Because you're giving it so much emotion. So like when I would do that, so I took that as like, I took notes on that, and I was like, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to just like memorize the gist of what I'm saying, and then it's whatever I say up there, like they're gonna get a unique experience every time. But doing something like recording a book, it's a little bit different, right? You gotta really kind of like you gotta read what you wrote, and like I'm working on an audio project right now, and unfortunately I got sick of like right around Christmas, and I was scheduled to finish it that week, and I just couldn't do anything. I could barely talk. But one of the and they're like short essays, like kind of like bleak shit that I wrote from like random thoughts and stuff. And one of them was like it was like basically the gist of it, and it's not long. This one's like 3 sentences or something like that, and the last sentence is like, but I don't do that. I share plates, and what did I say? I share plates and I write shit no one's ever gonna read. And as I was saying, I just started laughing in the booth, man, because I was like,
right.
I'm like, how do I say this and be okay with that? Like, you know what I mean? Because when you write it down, like for me, when I'm writing, all my emotion comes out, right? And like looking back at it and trying to say it out loud, I'm like, Jesus Christ.
It's tough. And but you're right. And the other really great thing about recording something that you've written, especially with a book, if you're recording it before the books come out, you find there's a couple of benefits. One, when you read it out loud, you have to say every word. You can't sort of paraphrase. So you tend to pick up things, by the time I recorded Dudley Road, I had probably proofread it 8 times. And I still found myself pausing the recording, fixing a typo, go back, or rewording something, because once you say it out loud, you're like, it doesn't actually flow the way it did when I wrote it. So there's that, but there's also that what you were saying, kind of when you're saying it out loud, all the emotion that you put into it when you were writing it comes back. And Dudley Road was always like, that was my campfire story. Like hanging out, telling stories like, oh, have you guys ever heard of Dudley Road? And I think anyone that grew up in the area knew this story. But I don't think any teenagers like hypothetically broke into a building to explore what was going on there. So I love the experience. I might do an audiobook for upstairs, but it's so much work. And for me, the longer I talk, you'll see as we go on, my voice gets hoarser and hoarser. And you can notice it at some points in the Dudley Road audiobook. Like if I had a long day at work and I was talking a lot and then I went and recorded that night, it sounds slightly different than the rest of it. So I might do it. I might not. I don't know. We'll see. Time will tell.
I get that. And like, there's been times where I'm recording stuff for the podcast, and it's like, even like when I'm doing, so I'll record an episode, like we're recording right now, right? And then in like from 2 days from now to like up until whenever this is going to drop, I'll do the intro and the outro. And there's been times where like I get like a respiratory infection and I lose my voice after we record. So I come in and I'm sounding like this, but then the conversation's normal. So
right.
It's a tough one, man. It's a tough one. And like, so I had to get not to be like too transparent, but I had to get a couple procedures done last week, and one of them was at an endoscopy, and they go down with the camera, and they had to like take samples and stuff, and like, and I was like, I wonder how my voice is gonna be, and it was like a wreck all weekend. I'm like, son of a bitch, like, I'm glad I didn't have anything to really. I had to record an intro and an outro, I think, to one episode, and that was it, and I was like, all right, well that's not bad, but like I was kind of saving my voice for it, you know what I mean? So
it's tough when you talk a lot, especially for a living. If you're talking a lot, it's just it's hard. My wife's a college professor, so she does a lot of lecturing, and she would get laryngitis a lot, and she went to some like vocal person at MGH who, like, she's just she's a teacher, and this guy was like the guy that Adele went to see when she played Boston and she lost her voice. Like, guy knows. So he gave her a bunch of exercises of stuff to do that you can like warm up your vocal cords. And so as I was coming up to my office, she was like, don't forget to breathe into a straw for 30 seconds. And it was
is that a thing? Is that a thing?
Yeah. If you take a cup, put some water, like an inch of water in the bottom of it, put a straw in it, blow into the straw and then hum any note, but just keep like a sustained note. Do it for 30 seconds and it'll warm up your vocal cords. And I thought it was, I was like, this is voodoo nonsense, but it actually does help, which I was really surprised about.
I have a buddy, and he went on tour with this like bigger musician, and like he's over in Europe, and like he was like, my buddy's doing like all these like vocal treatments and like, you know, certain drinks or whatever, and like the other guys were just like, you know, cigarettes and whiskey, and they sing phenomenally. You know what I mean? And he was like, what the hell?
Yeah, I know. Like look at Phil Anselmo from Pantera, right? His blood is basically whiskey at this point in his life.
Yeah.
And he smokes like 12 packs of cigarettes a day or whatever, but he still sounds great.
Yeah.
And then there's other guys that you see that, you know, it's 50 degrees out and they wrap a scarf around their neck and they're like, oh, I can't go out too late, and they're whispering and they're off time. And and it's crazy the difference that I guess you just get used to the way your body works. Yeah. And you don't feel the need to protect it. I don't know. I don't know how it works.
I do a hot tea is what I'm drinking right now. Like I usually do that throughout the podcast to keep, because I have a little bit of a rasp to begin with. So
yeah,
I don't want to get it too bad by the time we're over with it, you know? So, yeah, man. So anyway, I want to say right off the rip, Dudley Road is a phenomenal story, phenomenal book.
Thank you.
I had a lot of fun listening to it for many reasons. One of the things I saw on your website that I couldn't agree more with is like you create these like immersive worlds that people can kind of like get sucked into. And that's one of the things I love about storytelling, and you do a great job with that. And I think, you know, two parts talent, one part like it was real nostalgia for me. I'm guessing you and I are around the same age, so like the music references, the 90s references were all stuff that like I knew and like I held dear at that time, you know, and you write friendship very well. And that's something that has always like, that's the reason why I got into Stephen King when I was a little kid, because he could write friendship well, you know what I mean? So having that, like those relationships and have those in the way you write, like the friendship and the relationships in the book. Yeah, they were really good. And there is something to say about like fear in the book, about how addicting it can be. And I don't know, like, and I don't know if you've done a podcast about this with anybody or an interview, but like right away, I remember the addiction to fear and like the scary things that I had as a kid, and with my friends in like our little local town and the no legends that we made up, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. You know, cause like, I remember we would go out in the woods and get lost, and like, you know, years later I went back out there as like almost like out of high school, because I'd moved away, and I was with my buddies, and I'm like, wait, this is the thing? Like, this is like the hill.
What were we so scared of?
Yeah. Yep. You know, the old car out in the woods was still there, and I was like, it was way scarier when we were little kids and we thought somebody was in there. You know what I mean?
It really
like,
is.
So there's something to say, and you write that in the book, like, you know, you guys were like the characters were addicted to that. That's why they like, that's the way I saw why everyone kept going back. Now, I don't know how much of this story is true to you. You know what I mean? I'm assuming there's a certain element of it that is, because of the names in the book and just, you know, that's the area you're from. And that's been, you know, I learned about Dudley Road recently, but which was funny because I learned about it like probably a few months before you and I interacted. So that's
funny.
Yeah. But, you know, so like, I get that local legend thing, and I can see like this, like how, you know, like again, how the characters were like kind of addicted to going back and just trying to be scared and get scared. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I've said for years that I never point out where it is, but there's a point in the book that up until that point, everything was real. Mm. Obviously, the later parts I embellish because, you know, it's a book, right? If it were just a bunch of kids went in the woods, it wouldn't really be that super exciting.
Yeah.
So, and it's funny that you mentioned the nostalgic. So obviously for me, that was a big part of it. Like this, everyone listening to this has no idea because they've probably not read the book, but the concept of Dudley Road is, there was this urban legend when we were growing up in the mid to late 90s that my group of friends and I heard about this haunted road called Dudley Road, where there was a convent, and depending on what version of the story you heard, some bad things happened at some point in the past. So 1997, I was 17, almost 18. My friends were a little bit younger, and we decided to just go explore and see what would happen. And so a lot of those memories are locked in my brain. Like, I can't remember something my wife said to me this morning, but I can still vividly picture the inside of one of those buildings that we were walking through. Like, I can, and because it was the 90s, there's a lot of references to music, and one of the biggest references is the band that we were all obsessed with, Creed. And I got so much shit from people talking about Creed so much. And then honestly, it was like that book came out, March of 2023. And then the resurgence of Creed happened a couple of months later. So I've been joking like I did that. I willed it into existence. I made Creed happen, and now and it's funny because so the main characters in the book is obviously the main character Mike is me. My best friend my entire teenage years, Dan and Brian and Kevin. We were in a little crap band, and two of our female friends, and Brian and Dan and I keep in touch. We have a group chat and we talk, and I sort of lost contact with all of them over the years because, I'm in my mid 40s now, and this was a long time ago, but I reached out just to kind of get permission to use their names. And I was like, look, you may not even remember that we did this, but I wrote this book about it. If you don't want your name used, I'll change your name. And every single one of them was like, yeah, absolutely. Send me a copy. I want to read it.
It's awesome.
And two of the characters in the book, Dan and this girl, Jen, ended up, they were dating at the time. They broke up for a long time, but they got back together and they're married now and have kids. And so I sent them a copy of the book, and they were like passing it back and forth. And so they would finish reading part of it, and then Dan would message me and be like, oh, I just read this part. And I'd be like, oh, I love it. You're getting so far along. And it was just the nostalgia that it brought back for me, reliving some of these things that happened with the people that it happened to was just so much fun.
Yeah. That's awesome. So I want to ask this just about your writing in general, right? So you're not just like, you don't write horror normally, right? Like, and then we'll get into Upstairs, because I think that kind of treads in the supernatural thing. So we'll get into that.
It does.
But like, what as a writer, an independent writer, I feel like you can kind of, throw the rule book out, right? Of like picking a lane. It's about finding your voice. And if from reading, like, I haven't read the other books yet, but like from the synopsises that I'm reading, like I kind of see that voice, you know what I mean? And like that like kind of identity of what you are for a writer. And it seems like there's like a lot of like kind of like emotional driven relationship stuff. I'm really excited. I'm gonna pick up My Best Friend Marty, because it sounds like something I would absolutely love. And like as a reader, as a consumer of literature, like I'm not just like a horror fan either. Like I'm all over the place. Like my favorite stories are like just kind of like reunions, going home kind of things, you know what I mean? And like just from reading like the little plot about that book, I feel like I'll enjoy that one, because again, like I said, one of my favorite things is like people's like writing friendship, or seeing how friendship on a page looks like, you know what I mean?
That's exactly. I as a reader, I love to read, and I'm the same way. I don't pigeonhole myself into one book that I read. And it is difficult as a writer, because if you change genres, you potentially alienate an audience that you've built up. So, you write a book, whatever genre it is, and you get a following. It's 5,000 people. Let's use a round number, and they're like, "Oh, I love you. I'm gonna read everything you write." And then the next book you put out is a completely different thing that those 5,000 people have no interest in. Now you're basically back to ground zero. You're starting over with no fan base, no readers, no listeners. But there's all these stories that are trapped in my head, and I shouldn't be stuck to writing one thing or another just because that's what I initially wrote. And what's interesting about Dudley Road, it was going to be just a one and done thing. It was not the genre I write. I love reading horror. I'm a huge Stephen King fan. I'm really big into Riley Sager right now. If you haven't read any of his stuff, it's phenomenal. And I wrote Dudley Road just as, like I was saying, this was the campfire story that I told, and I wanted to put it down and immortalize it, and I did. And that book outsold my other two books that came before it 80-1. Like, wasn't even close. It was just one day right after it came out, I posted a photo to our book group on Facebook. I was just sitting on the floor signing a few copies before I sent them out. And it went like a little viral overnight. Like, everybody's like, where can I buy this? I want to buy it. And I sold like 2,000 copies in 4 days.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was great. And it took a really long time to get all those copies, get them signed, get them shipped out, all that sort of fun stuff that goes along with that. But
especially when you're by yourself, like it's just you don't have a publisher doing this for you. You're doing it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Part of it sucks is because my general philosophy is that I in this closet right here, I keep 10 copies of each book, both paperback and hardcover. You never know when you're going to sell anything. So when I sold all these copies, I had like 8 copies left. So I had to go order them from Amazon, and Amazon, they can print them the same day and ship them to you. It can take 2 weeks. There's no rhyme or reason. It just suddenly, my UPS guy pulls up and he's like, I hate you. Here's your pallet. Have a nice day. And so, I bring them in the house. I brought them up here and signed them all. And one of the things I do, if you buy directly from me, when you check out on my website, there's an option for if you want it signed, and there's some options like personalize it with my name, write a witty or inspiring inscription. And that's the popular one. And after like 10 books, I was like, what do I even write anymore? I ran out of things that I could say to be witty. So there's a lot of copies of Dudley Road out there that say like, follow your dreams unless they lead you to a haunted road. Because I just ran out of stuff to say.
Ran out of stuff. That's funny.
So
that's funny.
Dudley Road came out. It did really well. My best friend Marty didn't do as well. And I think because a lot of my audience was now expecting horror, and my best friend Marty, it's a tale of two bros over 20 years. They're just their lives. And so I said, when I was writing my best friend Marty, I was like, I'm never doing another horror movie. Like, this is not my jam, not doing it. And then when I was looking at the numbers, I was like, well, if I want to make any money, I should probably do this. And so I wrote upstairs. I finished it about a year and a half ago. And for me, writing is the easiest part. I've been using computers for 40 years. I type 130 words a minute. I think really fast. So stuff just flows out. So the first draft I can do in like 4 or 5 weeks. And then it's editing and fine tuning and thinking things over 5,000 times and artwork and copy edit. It's just, there's so much more that goes into it than just words on the page.
Yeah. Yeah, there is. There's a ton of it. And like I'm in the same mindset as you with like the writing part's easy. Like I get an idea and it just goes through my head and I see the whole thing and I'm like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing, and like and it turns out, so I spent too many years trying to write the perfect draft, right? Like it's just impossible. So but the way my brain processes stories, like when I'm thinking of them up, like it is the perfect first draft and I should just go with that and then go from there, and then fill in the second and then, keep going with everything else. So that's kind of the approach I've taken over it sucks. It took me like 40 years to get there, but but like I'm like, oh, this is how it should be done. Like, why do I keep, because I think it was the ADHD like makes me want like the perfect draft, and I
gotta be absolute flawless. Yeah,
it's just tweaking. I'm like, I'm never gonna finish this thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think the best compliment I've ever gotten, for my best friend Marty, I hired a woman to do a paid beta read for me, which I never do. I never pay. But this woman was like, I'll be so thorough. And, they all say that. And I'm like, okay, whatever. But it wasn't as fine as this is perfect, no notes. But what she said in her response was, I usually read a first draft and not a finished manuscript. So you're a lot farther along than what I normally read. And I responded, I was like, would you be surprised to find out that is a first draft?
Yeah.
And she didn't believe me. So I went into, I use an app called Scrivener for writing. And I went back and showed her like the timestamps of everything. And I was like, no, this is like, I wrote that chapter and never edited it.
Wow.
And for me, my first drafts are usually pretty close to what the final edit becomes. Like there's obviously some grammar tweaks and maybe some things that get punched up at the end, but for the most part, I don't go back and change a whole lot. And it's weird because when I do, and then I go back and read it, part of my writing flow is that when I'm done, I read it aloud to my wife to two things. One, to get someone else's thoughts on it, and also to see if there are any things that just don't make sense. And as I get to that point, I feel like as I get to something that wasn't in the very first draft, like if I go back and splice in a couple of chapters, even if it's a year later, when I read it, I'm like, that wasn't there when I first wrote this chapter. I can just remember those things for some reason. It's really bizarre.
No, I get that. Yeah. Yeah. I do
this. This paragraph it's not supposed to be here.
Yeah.
It makes it better, but it wasn't there when I first wrote this.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there like is there a mindset to that too? Like when you see that, like, are you like kind of like, oh, because you didn't get it right the first time, or you know what I mean? Because like with me, I think a lot of it is like, there's certain things where, I mean, I write a lot of like nowadays, like I write a lot of like self essays about things that, or, that's the best way I can describe it. It's like little things about happened in my life, and you know what I mean? And I'll write about that. And like, I'm like, and then like when it's time, because, when it comes down to it, when it's time to get it out there, like you got to clean things up. You got to, and it like, sometimes I'm just like, I'm so like stuck on like, but it's not going to be me, but it is, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think I need to get over the fact that cleaning something up doesn't mean it's not authentic. You know what I'm saying?
You're not removing your voice from it just because you've punched up some dialogue or you've fixed some grammar or something. One of I was just earlier today, I was having a not a dispute, but a lively conversation with someone on Threads about Pro Writing Aid versus Grammarly as add-on apps that help you fine-tune grammar and things like that. And I started with Pro Writing Aid, and what I found over years of using it is that it didn't learn how I write or how I talk. And I write like I speak. There's a lot of pauses, there's a lot of emphasis and things. And Pro Writing Aid would be like, you have to remove those commas. And I'd be like, kiss my ass. No, I don't. They need to be there. And Grammarly learns your voice over time. And that's why I decided to go with that one. And so there's a lot less cleanup that I need to do, because Grammarly will look at a paragraph and be like, okay, that's not grammatically correct, but it's how you sound, it's how you talk and how you write, which is what I really like.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's so much better than, because otherwise it's like, yeah, this is grammatically perfect, but it doesn't sound like a human being would write or say these things.
Right.
So yeah, keeping your voice, I agree. It's tough, and you don't want to feel like, you don't want to go back and read something and ever think I didn't write this, because then it's inauthentic. It doesn't feel like you. And no matter how big your audience is, like I'm, in the grand scheme of things, I'm a nobody author. Like I'm selling a few hundred books here and there. I'm not Stephen King. I'm not, I'm not a huge guy, but there are people who every time I put out a book, I get an email from them. And it's not just, I liked your book. It's, I liked your book and here's what I liked about it. And here's my favorite part. And I can't believe you did this. And they're really passionate about it. And I just love that. It's like the most rewarding thing. And it's probably unhealthy to keep up with that sort of stuff on both ends of the spectrum. Like you don't want your head to get too big, but you know, my wife still jokes that I got a 1-star review on one of my books and I haven't let it go, and it's been like 10 years. I'm like, but I want to be good. I want, you know,
Yeah.
I don't want the 1-star reviews.
Right. So did when you your first book, your first book, we'll go A Sour Chord, because it's not technically your first book. I love your timeline thing that you have, by the way.
Isn't that great?
That's amazing. I got to figure out how to do that.
Yeah, it's great. I put up the new website, I think last year.
Okay.
I was a web developer by trade for a long time. So I just, every so often I'm like, what can I do to make this better, easier, faster?
Yeah. So I want to go to A Sour Chord right now. So like you wrote in your little like, I don't know, the little spiel part, that's part, like, you know what I mean? When you talk about it, that, like, you didn't tell anybody you were doing this because you didn't want it to fail, I think is what you said.
I very much am a person who picks up a hobby, gets really into it, and then never does it again. And so I didn't want to start writing a book, get 40,000 words into it and be like, because then everybody that I tell that I would have told that I was doing this would be like, oh, how's the book coming? And then I'd have to be, oh, well, actually, I decided not to do it.
I hear. Yeah. So I'm of the, like, I like to experience things, is how I kind of like, I'll get into something and then, like, you know, if because, like, for me, I don't ever want one thing to be my identity. Like this podcast, like, this isn't like, because we talk a lot on the podcast, we talk a lot about mental health, we talk a lot about like all sorts of things in conjunction. Like, we, you know, I've had more authors on recently, but like it started as a kind of any kind of artist, and then I realized I needed to pick a lane, and like it just happened music was that lane, even though I don't play an instrument or anything. So we went to music, and then as I built an audience, I'm like, well, now I can go back and kind of do these other things too that I like, you know, because now people they're invested in me, and I feel like that's what you're doing with your writing. Like, people who are going to be vested in you because of like I said, your identity as a writer, I don't think is a genre. It's how you write, and it's the, you know, like the emotions and the relationships, and you know what I'm saying. So, where was I going with this? I just blanked out. So like, I never wanted one thing to be like my identity, right? So like, if I tried something and, like, you know, like I played semi-pro football from, like, I think I was like 23, and then I took for a few years, we won a championship, and then I'm like, I'm going to retire a champion, and then I went back in my late 20s and stopped playing in my early 30s after I got hurt. So like, but like, that football wasn't me. It wasn't who I am. It was just something I liked to do, and I wanted to experience. I wanted to see if I could play on another level. You know what I'm saying? And so you know, like I would do, like, I've done, like, you know, different types of martial arts when I was younger, and it was like all the same thing. Like, I wanted to experience this. Like, I wanted to. It was fun, but, like, you know, like when I was taking Brazilian jiu-jitsu, like, it got expensive, and like I had a dog that, like, had a lot of vet bills. So, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to give up the dog, you know,
You got to pick. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like, but I am the same way, like with like, I don't tell people I'm doing things. Like, I had so many friends who had no idea that I wrote, and I've been writing since the second grade. You know what I mean? Like, once I learned about creative writing and I found a way to, like, express my feelings, like, I was like, this is it for me. But like, there's people who had no idea. Like, I feel like there's no one person that knows everything about me, and like, it's weird. But so I get that. Like, and I wrote screenplays for, like, I don't know, basically 20 years, and like 3 people knew. You know what I mean? Like, you know, because, like, I was just like, I don't know. I get weird. I think there's a certain level of imposter syndrome that goes with that. Like, one thing is, like, I don't want people to say they like it because they know me, and I want people to say they like it because they like it, you know. And the other
100%.
side of it was, I don't have any fucking business doing any of this shit. So why put it out there? You know,
I'm bad at everything I do. Why would I ever do anything?
Yeah.
Imposter syndrome is terrible, and it's every aspect of someone's life, they can feel that way. Like I have a day job and I always feel like I'm the dumbest person in the room. And I know I'm not, but it's just that level of like, why did this company, why do they give me all this money when I have no idea what I'm doing, even though I do? And it's the same thing with writing. Like you're saying, you spend all this time creating something, you're second guessing yourself the whole way through. You're like, no one's going to like this. This is going to be garbage. And thankfully, knock on wood, none of my books so far, the first review has been negative. Because I think if it was, I'd be like, I'm throwing my computer out the window. I'm burning it all to the ground. I would like, that's just because that would be validation, right? Like I did a thing and I'm bad at it. And it's not imposter syndrome. I actually am an imposter.
Right. Yeah, yeah, and I always think that even when people like it, I still think isn't it that?
You're just being nice.
Through a decade of therapy, I'm finally able to like accept a compliment without coming back with it's not that good. You know what I mean? Like so,
right. But immediate rebuttal. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're being kind. Thank you.
I do want to ask this because you had a 6-year gap between your first book and your second book. And when I'm reading the little thing about the second book, you had mentioned that the editor hated it.
Hated it.
Now, did imposter syndrome take a step in?
Yep.
Is that why it took so long to get to?
Yeah, exactly. And the editor that I hired to do that book is the wife of one of my really good friends. So it took her a long time to put her feedback together, and she started her email to me with like, I don't want this to ruin your relationship with my husband. And I was like, first off, that would never happen.
Right.
You know, it's not like
that's kind that she was like worried about that though, you know?
Right. To the point where I was like emailing her every other day, like, are you done yet? It's been weeks. What are you doing? Because she was anxious and nervous to send me this feedback, but she hated the main character. She hated, and a lot of the stuff she said, I agreed with. That book, the first draft of that book, I wrote it. I got about maybe a third, 40% in, and realized that it's told from first person point of view. He never told anybody his name. And it was completely unintentional. But at that point, I was like, can I get through the rest of the book without anybody knowing who this guy is? And I did it. She absolutely fucking hated it. She was like, this is such a gimmick. It's so stupid. And there was a lot of other stuff that she really didn't like. And so I shelved it for a long time. I was like, I'm never going to finish it. I wrote the first draft of Dudley Road while that was still shelved. And my wife, the ever lovely voice of reason, said to me one day, she was like, that's just one person's opinion. I was like, you know what? You're right. Maybe I need to go back. And I did go back and I changed a lot of it and made it a little bit more cohesive of a story. And he has a name very early on. That character, his last name, I named after my favorite teacher from high school. And when she read it, she sent me a message and she was like, I'm literally in tears. You named him after me. This is so kind.
Awesome.
I was like, people affect your life, and a little thing that you can do to give back to them. So yeah, so the delay was the editor just absolutely hated everything about it. I think it was the longest email I've ever received in my entire life. Just here's everything in chronological order of what's wrong with this book. And I took it to heart. And when I went back and rewrote it, and it's my highest rated book. That's the one that I think people like the most. I think it's the most relatable. It's, again, for your listeners who have no idea who I am, it's called My Last Days. It's the first chapter. The main character gets diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. He's been a complete asshole most of his life, which is part semi-autobiographical. And he wants to atone for all the bad things he's done. And he knows he has a finite amount of time left, so he just starts trying to do good in the world. And reading the book, like from chapter 1, homie's gonna die at some point. So it does have, there's like a sad ending to it. But all of the things that he tries to do throughout the book to redeem himself, I think a lot of people can relate to a lot of the stuff that he tries to do.
It's awesome. See, that's something right up my alley. right up my alley. So that's another one I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna
Awesome.
So yeah, because like like I said, like I like those like that. That's like a coming of age too late kind of like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like I always enjoyed books like with the reunion, like 'cause the going home story usually has like you're a little older when you go home and like you have to do this like redeemable thing, and like so I call those like the coming of age for like the middle age. You know what I mean? And I have a project that I wrote that is 100% like in that wheelhouse of, because it was my going home story, right? Because like I moved away from home myself for reasons, and like I didn't go home for a long time, or if I did, I just went to my parents' house. Like I didn't go see anybody, and this is a town I grew up in, like with all these people, and like I just kind of I had to get away from it all and try to figure shit out, and then I'm writing this story, and like as it's progressing, and I'm like, God damn it, like there's so much of me in this story. But that's what I feel like people who write, like good writers, they write what they know and they embellish it, right? Like that's kind of how you. And for me, I don't call myself. I call myself a storyteller, because if I was a writer, I'd have more out. I think I'd want to, like, I don't put anything out, so it's like how can I justify myself being and that's it's splitting hairs, storyteller / writer or whatever. But yeah, so like it's
so true.
Yeah.
And the people who know me that have read my books they're always like, oh, I see a little bit of you in this character. I mean, Dudley Road's one thing because it's me, it's actually me, but the other books, and people are always like, oh yeah, I can see you in that character, and I'm like, thank you. I'm just not a very good writer. I'm not talented enough to completely fabricate something. Every little thing, even Upstairs, which is my new book, which is about guy inherits his grandfather's estate, and he and his wife move into the house, and the house is basically haunted. Obviously, that's not a real thing that's happened to me, but the character himself has a lot of traits that I exhibit, and it's just part of how I write. I put myself in things, whether intentionally or unintentionally. I don't know.
I think a lot of authors do that though. Like, well, at least I mean, a lot of my favorite ones do, and like to the point where like I can. And after an author that I'm a big fan of has been on the podcast twice now, and like his books, like I'm like after meeting him through doing this and like learning about him, like I see so much similarity in the characters with him. Like I just think that's just something I think. With music, it's a similar thing too. I think when people write songs, like they're writing about their experiences as well, and whether or not, like, I know a band from, they're from like I think they're from DC, Baltimore or DC. I always get the two confused because like they're close enough. Their music scenes are, incestuable or whatever. But like so like this band, they do these like crazy future like concept albums, but like I can see them in the writing too, as much as they. And that could be their way of dealing with their shit. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I think art is such a big emotional expression, probably because it was for me. Like again, I was a little asshole when I was a kid, and like I didn't know how to express emotions, and I still kind of don't at 44. But like writing was my way of doing that, and I could write things and I can get real vulnerable with my writing, and like if it's fiction, like I'm like, oh, it's just fiction, but then you go back and you read it, I'm like, yeah, it is fiction, but
mostly fiction.
Yeah. So but yeah, so I when I was reading about that about my last days and then that gap and then how you felt about it, and then reading about the first book and how you didn't tell anybody, I was like, oh, okay, I see this. Like, I see kind of, that's why I wanted to ask, like, who was that imposter? Like, if you got that imposter syndrome and like, you were like, kind of
exactly
like,
what it was.
I think it's over. I'm one and done. And
I feel like I'll always have stories to tell.
Yeah.
I have, I'm not the best at remembering things in my mid 40s. So I use an app to just keep track of to-dos. And I have a whole project in that of just ideas that I've come up with for books. And so awesome. Whether I sell 10 copies or 10 million copies. I think it'll always be something that I do. I'm thankful that it's not the livelihood of my family, because there are some times where, you know, you go a couple of weeks without selling a book as an indie author. And a lot of it is what I say is the hard part, right? Writing the book is easy. It's the, you know, hey, I wrote a book. Can you read it? Will you buy it? Can I have your money? That part is so difficult for me, even though, like, I'm not really an introvert. I'm a little of both. I'm an introvert at times, but I'm also an extrovert. But even that for me is difficult to like beat people over the head with it and say, please buy my book, please buy my book. So there's times where you just don't sell any. But writing is like you. I started when I was really young. I've always loved to tell stories. And, you know, I think I say in one of my books, I think I say something to the effect of like, I've always been a storyteller, but when I was a kid, my parents just said I was a liar. Because that's all storytelling is sometimes, is like you're just crafting 400-page lies and hoping people get to the end of it and they're like, oh, I like what you did. You know, that's all. Yeah. That's what it feels like sometimes.
Yeah. I had a buddy of mine tell me one time, don't ever let the truth get in the way of a good story. And I was
seriously,
like, you know what? That's accurate. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's accurate, you know? And I feel like especially when you're telling a friend a story, and like they know like when you're switching from like, this is what really happened, and this is like, you know, we're gonna go a little overboard with it, and like, you know, and I think that's great. I really do. Now I wanna talk about Upstairs, because I have a billion other things I want to talk to you about. So I want to talk about Upstairs right now. So yeah, so the book, like you said, give us a little bit. You said a couple moves into his grandfather's estate. Right.
Yeah. So the main character, Max, and his wife, Courtney. Max grew up with his grandfather. Grandfather's super wealthy, has like this massive estate, employees on the grounds, separate house for the, you know, like stupid wealthy. And the grandfather dies unexpectedly and leaves a little bit of money to Max's dad and his uncles, but primarily leaves everything to Max. And so they have this moment of should we move into the house? Should we sell it? What should we do? And I think at one point, Courtney looks it up and the house is worth like $40 million or something. And she was like, well, let's just move in. So they move into the house. And a big focal part of the story is in the attic. They have a walk-up attic, and there's this massive train set that Max and his grandfather built over the years. And it's huge. It takes up the whole attic. And so he finds a lot of memory and nostalgia being up there with the trains. It helps him miss his grandfather a little less. And then a few days after they move in, he starts seeing and hearing things. And it's kind of a little bit cliche horror novel. It starts really small. It's just like, you know, what was that noise? I thought I saw a shadow type of stuff. And then eventually he just sees this like demon monster thing, and it starts tormenting him. And so the whole book is him trying to figure out what the hell's going on. No one else is experiencing anything in the house other than his grandfather before he passed. And so he's like, am I crazy? What's going on? I don't know. And so it's just, I've tried to bill it as a kind of a modern take on the old classic haunted house story.
Nice. I'm sure, does it hit the 90s nostalgia in there too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah. I mean, I'm incapable of not throwing that stuff in. And one of the things that I thought I was super clever doing this, but apparently my wife tells me that other authors have been doing this for a while, but using pop culture references to describe people and situations. Because for me, I don't love when a new character is introduced in a book and there's a whole paragraph of be like, you know, he stood at 6'5" and he had brown hair and blue, and they're just describing the character. And I'm like, 2 pages later, I'm picturing whoever I'm going to remember anyway. So in parts of the book, I describe using TV shows and movies like, oh, this person looks like so-and-so character, or reminded me of when so-and-so said something from a show.
Yeah, that's cool.
To help paint the picture, because I think a lot of this stuff is relatable, you know, especially popular sitcoms and big TV shows and things like The Office and How I Met Your Mother and things like that, that are cultural phenomenons when they're existing. And one of the early reviews for Upstairs, the woman was like, P.S. I don't own a TV, so I didn't really understand most of the pop culture references. And I was like, good for you.
Yeah.
What do you want me to do about that?
Right. Gosh, why? Why do people like, I mean, I don't know. Okay. It's just, I just don't, why do people got to add stuff in like that?
Yeah. It was, I liked the book. It was really good. I didn't see the ending coming. It was a big twist. It was a big surprise. P.S. I don't own it. Like, good for you.
Yeah.
I'm super happy for you.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome though. That like, you know what I mean? Like that you do that. And I kind of agree with you. I was thinking unless someone's appearance is like prominent to the story or the character, right? Like, like in the Jack Reacher books, they talk about how big he is all the time and stuff like that, yeah, but that's part of what it is. Like, that's part of like that character. But like, when I write, I think I do the same. I don't think when I have characters in there, unless there's like a scar, you know what I mean? Like something prominent that needs to be told. I feel weird because like my early screenplays, because when I would read a screenplay, it would like have all that. And I'm like, do I need that? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think like, cause when I read, I have my own idea. Like you said, I have my own idea. Like I remember I read a screenplay that Rob Zombie wrote. It was a Crow, like the Crow franchise adaptation that never got made. And visually in my mind, I saw everything. And he was descriptive enough, but vague enough that I could, like, the settings were places that I knew in my head. You know what I mean? He did a great job with it. So I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good way to approach things. So like when you're using a character, or when you use these pop culture references, I think that's definitely more relatable for most people. You know what I mean?
And you don't want to get into a situation where you've described a character so intrinsically that 5 years from now, someone makes a movie or a TV show and they cast someone who isn't perfect, your fan base is going to lose their shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you said he was 6'5" and they cast John Krasinski and he's only 6'3". Like, people are just, they're going to find reasons.
They actually did that with Tom Cruise being
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, because he's supposed to be this monstrous guy and Tom Cruise is what, like 5'7"?
Yeah. That's funny you say that.
It doesn't make sense.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. And I think keeping it vague is you're giving the reader power. You're empowering them to envision that, right? To see with this, because I mean, for some, I'm sure they think of it like they're reading a character. If they can really get into it, they might see themselves as this character. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's a good thing to do. Power of imagination is so important. I feel like, especially with art and any kind. And I think being able to, I think if you put it all out there, you're losing that mystery to the submersive world. So yeah,
100%.
I totally agree with you.
And most of the time it doesn't matter unless it, like you said, unless it factors into the story, unless that scar across her face is like going to tie into she's killing this guy because he gave it to her. Who cares what they look like? Picture it however you're going to picture it. It's going to live in your head anyway. So why should I be the one that tells you how someone looks when it doesn't matter to me or you?
Yeah. No, totally agree with you. I don't know what book to start with next. Then I want to like. I have so many books that I've got on the shelf that I need to start. But like after listening to Dudley Road, I'm trying to find the next one I'm going to buy first and then go from there, because I want to check them out. I
appreciate that. I think
there's a certain, like, I think a lot of these are going to be totally in my wheelhouse. So like, of what I like. And I think that's good. I got to get into more reading, like sitting down. Like I schedule myself. It's so stupid. My entire life I have to schedule. I do things at random so much, but like my daily like life, like from work and then coming home, like I have to schedule everything. And I don't know if I really like that, but I have to. And like I have a
gotta do what
block
you
of
gotta do.
time for reading before bed. You know what I mean? So, so I gotta figure out which one of these I'm gonna grab.
It's
first.
hard. We need to find a way to have more hours in the day.
I always say I can use 2 more hours in a day and an extra day a week.
Seriously, I feel like I could do so much more if I just had more time. It's like
Yeah.
from the minute I wake up, I'm on dad duty for a while. I go to the gym, I come home, then I'm at work. Work is over, I'm back in dad duty. Kid goes to bed, now I'm on husband duty. There's very little time in the day to just do stuff. So you have to block time. You have to find spots where you can just be like, you know what? I'm going to my office. I'm closing the door. Don't bother me for a while.
And I totally like. So when you and I were talking, and like you were like, we were trying to find a time frame to do this, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, that's why I totally understood what you were saying. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, look. And then I was looking at my schedule. I'm like, well, hey, dumbass. I'm talking to myself. I'm like, hey, Trev, you dumbass. Like, you blocked out weekends, but you also like leave them like kind of like if there's nothing, if I'm not going to a show or I'm not doing something, like we can do I can do stuff. My problem was I would keep it all yellow, right? For everyone to pick things.
Right.
Next thing I know, I've got 5 days of podcasting, no time to write, no time to like kind of like to read, you know what I'm saying? So what I do now is like I block out my weekends, and then, but if I have nothing going on, yeah, I can do this. This is on a Saturday afternoon. I kind of like doing this on a Saturday afternoon. You know, so
Especially where, we're going to get 84 feet of snow in the next couple of days.
I know this is going to be terrible.
It really it's either going to be the worst thing ever or it's going to be nothing.
Yeah, true.
You never know. I was talking about this with my daughter on the way home from school yesterday, and so she's 8, so she doesn't understand. Like, I feel like when we were growing up, when it came to like news and events, it was different, right? Because at least for me, every night at dinner we had the news on, so like you would see the weather and all that, but she doesn't. So I was trying to explain to her why school's probably going to be closed on Monday, and I was kind of trying to jokingly explain that being a meteorologist is the only job where you can be wrong all the time and you just get to keep your job.
People love you.
Yeah, right. Especially in Boston, right? Like, we had Dick Albert for what, like 40 years on Channel 5 in Massachusetts. And I mean, he was great. He was a great TV personality, but you're going to get 12 inches of snow and then you get no snow. You're like, well, let's not lynch him because it's okay that he's wrong.
Yeah. Because that's like bad news, right? You're delivering bad news.
Right,
exactly. We're getting a foot of snow and then we don't get it. It's like, you're forgiven.
It's the worst when it's the opposite. When they say it's like, oh, we're going to get 2 inches and then you get a foot and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, okay, now I'm really mad at you about that because now you've screwed my life up even more.
Yeah. So like I worked for a company couple years ago, and we were 24/7 facility. So like, and like we were like emergency services or whatever. So like when we had snowstorms, to avoid people calling out, because I worked an overnight shift, they would pay you double time, and
nice.
They would also give you a hotel room and like that was close to the facility or whatever. So they booked me for 2 days because I worked the overnight. So they're like, you're gonna get out of work at 6 a.m. We don't want you to have to like get up by 11 for checkout. So we're gonna give you the room for 2 days and you get the double time or whatever. And I left work and it didn't start snowing yet. And I'm like, I'm just gonna go home. So I worked my shift, I got double time, and I went home. And when I got home, I unlocked the door, and as I was unlocking the door, it started to snow. So and then we got like a foot or whatever. So
yeah,
but yeah, so I was like, that worked out in my favor. But there's been some times where it doesn't work out, you know. So like
for sure.
Where I'm at now, back to the time thing. I work in Bedford, and I live in Whitensville. I don't know if you know where Whitensville is.
I have no idea.
So have you ever heard of Purgatory Chasm?
No.
All right. So I live in between Providence and Worcester.
Okay.
Yeah, and
so a little further west than me, and you live 25 minutes east of me.
Yeah, and I work in Bedford, so like that's where my time suck is my commute is mostly, you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's no good, like, you have to kind of zigzag to get there. There's no real easy way to get there.
The first first 20 minutes or so is getting to 495, and then from there, it's like, all right, now it's not bad once I get on 495, and then
then just go down Route 3, right?
Yeah. Well,
Or
actually,
up Route 3. No,
yeah. I hit the Pike. I hit the Pike 95, then I hit 3 and come up. So
Okay.
that's the most direct. Now in the afternoons, I can't go that way home because of traffic, so I end up going 3 up to 495 and then back down, and you know what I'm saying. So
yeah, going west on the Pike at any time after like 2 o'clock is just forget it.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough, man. It's just tough getting around in the afternoons nowadays.
It really
is. So many people, but I digress from that. I do have a couple questions for you because I know I want to wrap this up for you because it's a Saturday. I don't want to take up your whole day, but when you started writing, like what drove you to start writing? Like, so
good question.
For me, it was a way that I could express myself, and like
I think that was probably part of it for me as well. Being able to put down on paper, like literally, I think some of the first stuff I wrote was pen and paper. Just being able to write it down was cathartic in some things, and I still have somewhere on my computer. I have like, it started out on a floppy disk, and then it's come with me for decades. But I started writing. It started off as kind of a journal and then morphed into like kind of fiction, but it was called What's Wrong with This Picture? A Teenager's Guide to Life. And it was kind of cathartic to just write about stuff. And I've always been into music too. So when I was younger, I was in bands and I would write songs, and it was kind of the same thing. It's just a way to convey how you're feeling without having to really like talk to anybody about it or say things out loud.
Yeah. Now, so with being in music, like being in bands before, and I don't know if you're in a band now.
No, I'm a basement warrior.
Yeah, but like writing music, and then writing, stories like a book or something. Like, does it do the same thing for you, or are they two kind of? Do they do separate things for you?
They're similar.
Yeah,
there's some similarities. I mean, I think for me, a really good song tells a story. And you could take a song and turn it into a 400-page book, right? If it's a really good song and it has a good story to it, you could make that into a book. So writing both of those has similarities. I wouldn't say they're exactly the same. You have more leeway and freedom in a 300-400 page book than you do in a 3 or 4 minute song. So I get different things out of both of them, but they're both, I think, both important parts of who I am as a person and a writer.
Right on. Yeah. It's funny because like for me writing, like I'm like, I can't write a book. I don't have, this is when I was younger. Like I was like, I don't have that many words in my head, and then like, we'll fast forward. So I went with screenplays because I was like, these are relatively shorter, you know what I mean? And like, and everything. And then when I decided I wanted to go further and write longer things, I realized like writing a screenplay is a pretty good first draft. And I was like, oh, okay. So like the project that I was talking about earlier that I wrote about like the going home story, like it's a screenplay right now. And when I finished it, I'm like, there's more to this. But but like with film, you kind of like, not that I was going to get it made, but like I'm looking at it, I'm like, well, you only have like after a certain amount of pages, it's too long for a screenplay. So let's make this into something more. So, and then I'm embarrassed to say I finished the first draft like 2 years ago and I haven't done anything with it since, but I do plan on going back to it. My problem is I get too many projects all at once and I'm just like, how do I, so now, like I said, everything's structured now. So now I have things kind of set to kind of change up and you know what I mean, move from one to the other and everything. So, but I'm like, you know what, it's time. I'm old.
Do it. Yeah.
I gotta get stuff out there, man. I got it, so like I had this project. It was actually two separate, two, they both had different vibes, but there was like two collection of like essays and like, like little things about me or whatever. And I put them together and I was like, part one is going to be called Disconnect. Part two is going to be called Home. Cause like I said, and I didn't do it on purpose, but all these like essays that I wrote had two pretty specific vibes, right? And then I was like, I'll put them out together. This is going to be awesome. And then like I finished it and I'm like, I can't put this out together. It's not very big. It's not a large thing, but I was like, no one's going to want to read, say, 60 pages of bleak shit from someone they never heard of. So let's split it and I'll do one and I'll do the other. And I'm like, well, I have an audio platform, right? So let's make this an audiobook first. And then I'll do print if people like it. You know what I mean? And like, so that's kind of like my idea for, so like right now the main focus is to finish Disconnect for the audiobook, which is almost like I said, it's all written, but I think I have like 4 or 5 more like, things to record and then I'll be done with it. So I got to get that done. But like, I'm just like, and then I was like, and then I'll do print later and I'm doing everything backwards. I don't care. Like,
I mean, there's the nice thing about being independent is there's no right or wrong way to do it. You know, whether you build an audience because you did a print book first or you did an audiobook and people liked it and they wanted a physical copy with your scribbles in it. Doesn't matter how you get there as long as you get there, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. So, and it's easier for me to get stuff out there, like I said, with audio because I have a platform for it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
You've already got all the hardware and the know-how and the side. That's the biggest hurdle. I think a lot of people who write would record their own stuff if they had, you know, like not everybody's got a $400 microphone laying around that they can just go and record stuff with. You're right.
And I tell everyone now, you can get the Rode Pod mic for a quarter of what this one costs,
and they're great.
They're just as good. They really are. I have 4 of those. So when I travel, if I'm traveling somewhere to do a podcast, I have 4 of those, and I have like my Rodecaster.
I was going to ask if you had the Rodecaster too.
Yeah, that's my interface thing, and it's my love letter to radio too. Like I love that it's got physical faders.
The faders, I know.
Yeah. So my Patreon for the podcast, we do a radio. Well, we used to do. I haven't done it in a while, but I would do like a radio show, and it was like I did it all from that, and I was like,
that's awesome,
amazing. Like so, and I know you grew up a radio guy too. I know that from Dudley Road. WAAF was a station that I could pick up down where I lived in Rhode Island when they were in Worcester. So like my senior year of high school, like I had AAF blasting all the time, and I was like, this is awesome. And then, you know, in 2000, that was in 1999, and then in 2011, I moved to Worcester, and I can listen to AAF again, and I'm like, it's basically at that time it was basically almost all the same DJs, and they're playing the same music, and I'm like, this is amazing. Like,
it still exists now. It's music only. There's no DJs.
Yeah, I'm like radio.com, right?
No, that you can get it on FM too. It's 104.1, which is funny because that was the other rock station.
Oh, really?
But it's very short. Like I think it's broadcast out of Worcester. I'm in Southborough. That's 30-ish miles.
Yeah, we're basically neighbors. Not really.
Yeah. But if I go east, even 2 towns over, it starts to get crackly. So it's not a strong signal, but it's all the same music. It's like, you know, the kids now would probably call it stuff classic rock, but it's the stuff from the 90s and early 2000s that we grew up with. But there's no Mike Shue, there's no Mistress Carey, there's no Hillman.
I listened to 101 FM, The Pike, out of Worcester.
Okay.
And Mike Shue is the morning show host there.
Is he really? I love Mike Shue.
And Mistress Carey does the afternoon drive.
I'm gonna have to start listening.
Yeah, just to let you know. Yeah, 100. That's awesome. 100. It's 100 FM The Pike. That's right. It's 100 FM. I think the dial is 100.1. But yeah, so Shue's been on this show a few times.
Really? That's awesome.
Yeah. He was like. I mean, you know, back when radio was weird and he was on AAF, like he had Harder Faster, which is how I learned a lot about like Boston music. You know what I mean? And like I'm a huge. Ever since. I always tell this story. I went to a Dropkick Murphy show in like, it might have been like 2000 or 2001. And I saw a band play, the Ducky Boys play. And like, I was like, I got to find out more about this Boston stuff. And like, been a huge fan of Boston music. Like I go to a lot of local shows and like, you know, and I'm that's kind of how this podcast ended up being so about music. Cause like I ended up meeting all these bands and I'm like, hey, let's do something. Let's try to promote your stuff because there's a lot of good music here in Boston and in New England. There's a lot of good music, and I think
Yeah.
We need to showcase that,
And that's the thing is no matter what it is, whether it's music or books or movies or whatever, there's so much good stuff out there that just hasn't gotten in front of the right people.
Yeah.
Like the biggest success story with self-published authors, I think, is Andy Weir. He wrote The Martian, which became a movie with Matt Damon.
Yeah.
He self-published that book himself, had barely sold any copies of the book when someone at a movie studio read it, and they were like, this would make an awesome movie. And he's like, wait, you want to give me how many millions of dollars? And it's just, you just got to get in front of the right people sometimes. It doesn't matter how big you are. And that's exactly what you're saying, right? There's so much good music out there that, I generally, when I'm sitting at my desk for my day job, I'm listening to Spotify all day long. Love them or hate them, whatever, and I use the Discover Weekly playlist all the time. There's so many bands that play. Like, I know Spirit Box is a huge band. I had never really listened to them before a couple weeks ago. And usually when I'm working, music's just on in the background. I'm not really like actively listening to it, but I stopped what I was doing and I was like, what is this? This is so good. And I paused and listened to it. I was like, oh, well, I'm going to listen to everything you've ever released now, because that one song that I just happen to catch. And sometimes that's all you need.
Yeah. You're right. So I was, what did I first start with? Like Google Music or whatever the Google one was. That's no longer a thing. And then I went to Spotify, and then like after Spotify, I don't know. I realized I'm a snob for like sound. So Spotify, like their sound quality is terrible.
Sounds like crap. Yeah.
I kind of like, and I listen to so much independent music. It just made sense. Like I have Bandcamp. I use Bandcamp, and I buy a lot of music though. So like probably because when I was younger, I stole a lot of music. So now like I'm making up for it. And I, as you can see, like I like vinyl, and you know what I mean? And like, I got cassette tapes laying around here somewhere. Like I'm a music, like and again, it's funny because like it's not something I ever did. I wasn't good at it, and like I can't. Going back to the whole like before, I didn't think I could write like a book because I didn't have enough words. Now I have too many words and I can't write a song. I've tried a million times.
Right.
The running gag is when I write a song, I'm going to end the podcast because when I have musicians on, I'm like, tell me your process, because everyone's process is different. Every single one. So it's like, and like I'm like, one day I'm going to do it, and then I can end the podcast. It'll be
figure it out.
I probably won't end it because I'm too crazy to end it. So, but so well, as we're wrapping up, Mike, thank you for doing this. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
This was awesome, and your next book, come back. Let's do this.
100%.
I'm gonna dive into the rest of your stuff because I feel like it's gonna be my wheelhouse. And is there more books in the tank? There are, right?
I don't know what I'm gonna write next.
Yeah,
and usually, as I'm wrapping up a book, I've started on the next thing. But the end of last year, my daughter got sick, and it was just hard to have the extra time, So there will be something else probably early next year. I think I'm gonna try to do one a year for the next few years, just to keep the juices flowing. But there'll definitely be something else. Yeah.
Well, and listen, like you want to come back on and just chop it up about music or books or whatever. The door's open, man. You seriously.
I appreciate that.
I appreciate you doing this. And and I think everyone should go check out Upstairs and the rest of your books. And I hope, I have faith in my listeners, right? And the listeners of this podcast, not my listeners, because I'm not the only guy on this podcast. Like this podcast, this is like a channel now, and we have different things. But I do have faith that someone is going to grab one of your books, or at least one from listening to this. So
I would love that. Let me know if you buy it from me. Write in the comments that why you're buying it.
Yeah. If you heard it on the Struggling Artist podcast, let
fantastic.
Let Mike know, and I'd love to know if someone.
You'll be the first I tell as soon as one of those come through.
So, like I said, I don't have many listeners, but they're loyal. That's what I always like to say.
Those are
really
the best
good.
kind.
I had a poet on, a musician who was also a poet, and I think a couple of people bought his book of poetry, and so I'm always trying to get that out there. So
that's all you can do.
Yeah. So, but no, I appreciate your time, and well, like I said, come back. This was awesome.
I definitely will. Yeah, I'll let you know when the next book's ready, and we'll talk about whatever. I mean, you want to just talk about music all the time? Let's talk about music. I love
I'm
it.
sure we could have that's why I had to stop myself before this was a 2-hour podcast, and you and I were talking, I know you guys shit to do. So. But all right,
Thanks for having me on. This was a lot of fun, and I'll definitely be back.
All right, awesome.